Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Rule, and today we're going to ask if werewolves are for real, tell you about the exciting origins of both Halloween and witchcraft, also investigate the life and times of Bela the Count Lugosi, and show you a hotel reputedly haunted by a ghost, and cover other intriguing subjects. First up are werewolves for real. In virtually every culture and throughout all time periods, we have had reports of so-called werewolves, men transformed into wolves by the power of the full moon. For example, in England, they're known, of course, as werewolves or lycanthropes. In France, as the loup-garou. Down in Africa, they call them the were-leopard, men transformed into leopards. Among the American Indians, they have legends of were-bears, were-snakes, and were-foxes, i.e., men transformed into those various creatures. And down in Southeast Asia, such as in Burma and Thailand, we have the Taw, T-A-W, men by day, hairy beasts by night. Now, the earliest documented case of a werewolf appears to be from 774 AD in Syria. Described were a pack of werewolves that attacked village after village, eating alive both children and animals, and some adults also. They were described as men who crawled on all fours, had long claws, fangs, and hairy faces. A terrible case. Equally terrible was the case in 1573 of a man named Gilles Garnier in Dole, France. He killed 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. He ate them alive. People saw him and said that he looked like a werewolf, with, again, the hairy face and the fangs and the long claws and walking on the ground. When captured, he admitted that he was a werewolf. His punishment, burial alive. And on a less somber note, in 1977, we have the case of a Houston housewife, age 49. One night, when the moon was full, she looked into the mirror and saw herself being transformed into a female werewolf. She started to bay at the moon and walk on all fours. Now, her family sent her to the psychiatric ward where she was given antipsychotic drugs, which appeared to work. But on the next full moon, she again began baying at the moon and crawling on all fours. To this day, she may be doing that every night there's a full moon. Now, how does a person become a werewolf? Well, the number one way is by being bitten by a werewolf. Another method is by drinking from the stream where a wolf has just been drinking from. And thirdly, by way of a curse. How do you kill a werewolf? The most traditional method, with a silver bullet through his heart. Another way is through the so-called legendary flower known as the moon poppy. When it blossoms, a werewolf can eat it and be cured. The only problem, sort of a catch-22, is that this flower does not blossom until the moon is full, when the person has become transformed into a werewolf and probably has no desire to eat it and be cured. Now, we have a case of a possible modern-day werewolf seen up in the state of Wisconsin. The interviews after this commercial break. Stay tuned. You've got to see this. Three women up in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, outside of Milwaukee, claim they've spotted a werewolf. Let's hear their intriguing stories.
Bray Road runs about 4 miles through rural Elkhorn. It's a good shortcut to downtown. But Lori Andreezy, Doris Gibson, and Heather Bowie never ride on Bray Road. It's the middle of the night 2 years ago. Lori Andreezy is driving home from work.
And I saw this animal type thing kneeling on the side of the road, eating what appeared to be roadkill. And as I drove by, I saw the back of his head, so I saw it had pointy ears. And as I drove by him, he turned around and he looked at me. He had the roadkill or whatever in his hands like this, like an animal wouldn't. It was strange. As I drove by him, he turned around and just looked at me. He didn't get spooked, he didn't run away, he didn't do anything, he just stared at me. And I saw that he had the claws. He was brownish silver color. He had very long claws, he had big fangs, he had glowing eyes.
6 months later, Heather Bowie runs into the beast while sledding.
It looked like maybe a dog and wolf mix, and it looked like kind of like deformed.
And then, just 2 months ago, Doris Gibson runs over something on Bray Road. She gets out of the car.
Something come at me, through the fog, and it's a pretty big animal, When I seen it coming at me, I got a little scared, ran back in the car. But by the time I got in the car and got ready to pull off, because it got accelerated slow and fast, it grabbed the back of the car and it scratched it.
Doris Gibson's story makes it 6 beast sightings in the past 2 years. The Walworth County Humane Society quietly collects them in a special werewolf file. The werewolf sightings are the talk of Elkhorn at the expense of the believers. Werewolf hunting is becoming a big pastime out here. Armed with lanterns and a few beers, people come out here for a glimpse of a legend. Lori Andreezy is not among them.
I won't drive down Bray Road again in the dark. It's very scary. I mean, to me, it looked like an unnatural thing.
Our thanks to station WV-TV, Super 18 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for that fascinating film footage. Now, if you've seen a werewolf or anything else of an intriguing nature, call us at our toll-free 800 number. That's 1-800-45-RULE, R-U-E-H-L. And now, the intriguing origins of Halloween. Halloween is basically an amalgamation of Celtic and Roman traditions. The Celts occupied Great Britain 2,000 years ago, and their new year was November 1st. They believed this was a cruel, evil time because the wretched weather destroyed their crops and made them sick. The evening before, they believed, belonged to their god of death, Samhain, who they thought brought out demons and ghouls on that wicked night. They actually celebrated this by wearing animal costumes, and here we have one origin of Halloween tradition, that is, wearing a Halloween costume. They began with animal skins. Later on, we had November 1st designated first as All Saints' Day, then as All Souls' Day, and then as All Hallows' Day. As a result, the night before became known as All Hallows' Eve, ultimately contracted to Halloween. We also had people going souling, that is, they'd go from house to house begging for soul cakes in exchange for saying a prayer for the dead. And there's one of the origins of trick-or-treating. And may I stress, the term trick-or-treat, which we say so lightly today, is actually a threat, an extortion. You're telling a person, give me a treat or I'll play a trick on you. And kids used to soap up windows in the 30s and 40s in the United States as that trick. Another origin of Halloween is that of the jack-o'-lantern. In Irish mythology, it was believed that a man named Jack, who was a miser in life, was denied entry into heaven. But he once played a trick on the devil so he could not go to hell. So he had to roam the earth carrying a lantern until Judgment Day. Turning now from Halloween to the deep blue sea, we go back to December 4th, 1924, aboard the SS Waterton, an oil tanker. 2 crew members were cleaning out a tank when they suddenly succumbed to toxic fumes and died. They were cast overboard in a ceremony, and nothing more was thought about it until 3 nights later, when a sailor aboard the ship spotted what appeared to be 2 heads bobbing along beside the vessel. They were the heads of James Courtney and Michael Meehan, the 2 dead sailors. He could not believe his eyes. He summoned some other sailors over to take a look, and they confirmed his amazing sighting. The captain dispatched a boat to try to pluck them out of the ocean. But it turned out they were not flesh and blood heads, but phantom heads. This entire chain of events continued throughout the trip. The captain approached the owners and asked what could be done. They suggested he get some photographic evidence. He took 6 shots. 1 came out and was verified by the Burns Detective Agency. Is this evidence of existence beyond the grave? In this case, the watery grave. It's time for the trivia question of the day. Thank you, Boris. Let's extricate from its paper prison. The question today. Bela Lugosi was married 5 times, but had only 1 child, a son. What is the first name of Bela Lugosi's only son? And I'm going to give you a hint. You've heard the name before. The prize, the only prize, is 1 pat on the back that you'll have to administer to yourself, if and only if you get the correct answer. I'll take a sip of water and be back momentarily. Okay, time is up. Again, the name of Bela Lugosi's only son, Bela Lugosi Jr. He's actually a very successful attorney in Southern California. Now, Bela Lugosi, in 1955, had his last major speaking role. That was in the movie Bride of the Monster, in which he played Dr. Eric Varnoff, creator of Monsters. When he delivered his lines on the set, on 1 take, everyone there stood up and gave him a standing ovation.
Love is mute. Because of the storm. I was afraid we are not going to have guests tonight. Who are you? Varnoff. Dr. Eric Varnoff. The name will mean little to you.
Bela Lugosi died in 1956, 2 weeks into the shooting of his final film, the notorious Plan 9 from Outer Space. He was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Los Angeles with one of his Dracula capes and his Dracula ring. When we return, fascinating facts about witchcraft, including interviews with real-life witches. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for intriguing facts about witchcraft. Reports of witches actually date back many centuries. For example, in the Bible, we have one reference in Exodus chapter 22, verse 14, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," which in essence was an order to kill witches. And also, in the first book of Samuel, there's reference to the witch of Endor. In Greek mythology, we have Hecate and Circe, 2 other witches. Now, paganism, which is basically the religion of witchcraft, and witchcraft, by the way, is also called the old religion, coexisted with Christianity for several hundred years. However, in 1431, the first woman accused of being a witch was burned at the stake. She was the well-known Joan of Arc, considered a witch because she heard voices that urged her to lead her country. In 1484, Pope Innocent VII issued a papal bull that set the stage for the burning of witches at the stake. From that time until the 1800s, in both America and Europe, some 3 million people are believed to have been burned at the stake as witches. Obviously, many innocent people died as a result. Today, we have some practitioners of witchcraft. We interviewed them. They're going to dispel the notion that witches are evil.
We literally worship the earth as a living entity from which all life springs. By the fire and the breath of the maiden, the circle is cleansed. By the fire and the breath of the maiden, the circle is cleansed. I think the first thing that we encounter right away is people connect us with Satanism. And pagans, neo-pagans, witches, do not worship Satan. We don't even believe in Satan. By the body and the waters of the mother, the circle is charged. People have lost their jobs, have lost their children because of their religion, because of this religion. And no other religion in this country encounters that. We're still fighting centuries of misconception. By the knife of the crone, the circle is cut. By the knife of the crone, the circle is cut.
I'm just a normal person. You mentioned magic or doing tarot readings or anything like that, and people automatically go, "Oh, okay." But I've often tried to explain it that magic is no different than prayer. That's a kind of magic.
Other people think, we're all about mysticism and magic and even doing environmental things. But there's a very, very large techno-pagan community.
That's right.
Of scientists, doctors, lawyers, people with degrees.
We're starting to stand up for our rights and say we are a valid religion. This is who we are. We don't want any more of the ugly old woman depicted as the witch, which first of all denigrates the older woman and denigrates one of our sacred symbols, the woman as crone, the older woman. She's sacred in our religion. We are not going to tolerate any more movies that depict witches as horrible, hateful people who eat and destroy little children. We're just not willing to put up with that any longer. And we should not have to. This is America.
Intriguing information that may well change your perspective on witches. And now, the haunted Del Coronado Hotel of San Diego, California. Tonight we are back in the year 1892. The month is November. The time, 10 p.m. A mysterious young woman steps onto the hotel veranda. She braves the elements to stare out at the stormy sea. But by 8:30 the next morning, a groundskeeper making his rounds finds the woman dead on the stairs leading to the beach. Her dress is bloodstained. A gun lies by her side. An inquest is held, and Kate Morgan, resident of room 302 of the hotel, is pronounced a suicide. End of the story? Not quite. For Kate's ghost continues to haunt the hotel for the next 100 years. It appears in the wall cabinet of what had been room 302, but is now designated as room 3312. In the weeks just prior to her death, she had been employed as a domestic for a well-to-do Los Angeles family. To them, she was a diligent worker, neat, honest, reliable. But in fact, Kate Morgan was not what she appeared to be. She was married to one Tom Morgan, a ne'er-do-well gambler. Together, they made a precarious living traveling the railways of the West, enticing strangers into rigged games of chance. In the days just prior to Thanksgiving 1892, Tom Morgan resurfaced in Los Angeles and enticed Kate to come to San Diego with him, perhaps to make a new start. On the train traveling south, one witness recalled seeing the couple in a fiercely heated argument. An angry Tom Morgan left the train in the town of Orange, and a tearful Kate was left to make the journey to San Diego alone. Is the ghost of Kate Morgan haunting the Hotel Del Coronado? We'll find out after this message. Welcome back. And now for the conclusion of the haunted Del Coronado Hotel and the ghost of Kate Morgan. Intriguingly, the ghost of Kate Morgan had been exorcised from room 3312 in 1989 by Alan M. May. His persistent investigation into the case uncovered the fact that Kate had not committed suicide after all. Her husband Tom appeared on the veranda that night. They quarreled again, struggled, and he shot her, leaving her body to look like a suicide. Mr. May went on to seek out Kate Morgan's grave and to provide it with a tombstone. This and her absolution from suicide seems to have placated her ghost, and Kate was finally able to leave this world and find peace. She has not been seen since 1989. If you have a video of a ghost or anything else intriguing, send it to us at P.O. Box 847, Glendale, California, 91209. Now, we do not guarantee to use it, but if we do, you'll enjoy a small measure of success, and that's a lot better than a slap on the belly with a wet trout. Now, until next time, may the power of the universe be with you.